we need another Mike Vrabel. We need a guy who is going to change the culture and change the culture from a losing culture to a winning culture. I believe that's what this franchise needs, and I believe we're going to get it this offseason. I expect this Giants team to be this year's Patriots next year. Hello and welcome back to yet another video on the Alejandro Hernandez podcast. This is going to be my reaction to my New York Giants hiring the best coach on the market in John Harbaugh. And as a guy who predicted that the Ravens and Steelers would both move off their Super Bowl winning head coaches, and now seeing that Super Bowl head coach in Baltimore, John Harbaugh, get hired by my franchise, it just feels like all the dominoes are falling in place. Everything is just happening step by step. And I'm so glad to see all this progress the way I envisioned it. And I was hoping, I had done a video on the Giants firing Brian Daboll, and I was hoping that we would get this culture-changing head coach. We would get a guy like Mike Vrabel. We would get a guy like Dan Campbell, or even like a Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen. Just somebody that can come in and completely do a 180 on the franchise. On, for example, the Bears and Jaguars, those have both been historically losing franchises. They get their guy this year, they're instantly in contention. The Jags won 13 games, the Bears won 11, and they're set to play in the divisional round this weekend. And I give them a good shot at winning that. But with that being said, I am so happy as a Giants fan. This has probably been my happiest day as a Giants fan since we beat the Minnesota Vikings in the 2022 wild card. So it's been a long time. It's been pretty much almost 3 years since I've felt this level of happiness as a Giants fan, this level of hope. And I'm going to be getting into it in this video as to why I believe John Harbaugh is the perfect man to turn around the New York Giants franchise and turn us into immediate playoff contenders next season. So my take on the John Harbaugh hire for the New York Giants is I just don't think it's a coincidence or a surprise at all that the Giants were the first team to get a head coach hire this offseason, and that they were able to secure the best available coach on the market. It's simply because they had the most attractive job out of any franchise without a head coach currently. When you look at the Steelers and the Ravens now having openings, obviously those are attractive jobs. But when you're looking at the future, the Giants are most set up for success and a 180 turnaround more than any other franchise currently, and I'll list the reasons why. They have a franchise quarterback on a rookie contract. They have Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors, Abdul Carter, all on rookie contracts. They have a franchise left tackle in Andrew Thomas. They also have Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns both under contract. And on top of that, they also have a top 5 draft pick. Who would not want to take over this situation? I just think that it was the perfect job for any head coach, and I'm so glad that a guy of Harbaugh's stature was able to be available on the market, and the Giants wasted no time in pursuing him. And they probably offered him the amount of money that he simply couldn't resist. I believe the contract is set to be 5 years, $100 million, which means that he will be making $20 million per season, which makes him among one of the top 5 most paid, highest paid head coaches in the entire NFL. So I believe that this hire is just set up for ultimate success on both sides, in favor of the Giants and in favor of John Harbaugh's career. Because obviously he was ran out of town in Baltimore for all the blown leads, for all just the disappointment, the missed opportunities. And yeah, eventually he ran his course in Baltimore, and that's perfectly fine. He accomplished such great things in Baltimore. He had 180 wins as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. He had a Super Bowl championship. He had a positive playoff record. He was 13-11 in the playoffs as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, a better record than Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. So obviously the past couple of seasons have been major disappointments for the Ravens, but let's not get it twisted. John Harbaugh is an excellent head coach. He is an excellent head coach, and he is exactly who the Giants needed to have a 180 on this franchise and finally get us back into respectability around the league and into playoff contention once again, and consistent playoff contention, not just a one-year blip like in 2016 or in 2022. I believe now that we have secured John Harbaugh and we're going to lock him up for 5+ years, I think that we're going to have prolonged playoff success, and we're going to be in the mix for a Super Bowl in the next couple of years because we have all the pieces in place, like I just said earlier on. So back when I made my video on Brian Daboll getting fired, I had made the prediction that the New York Giants in 2026 were going to be the 2025 New England Patriots. And I feel even more confident and justified in that prediction now, given that we just hired John Harbaugh. So quickly, I just want to list the similarities between the two franchises and in the positions that they're in currently. The 2024 New England Patriots finished 4-13 with a top 5 draft pick. The 2025 New York Giants are finishing 4-13 with a top 5 draft pick. Both these teams, at the time in New England, they knew that Drake May was their guy. Now the Giants are certain that Jackson Dart is their guy. And they picked best player available at number 4, which was Will Campbell, the left tackle out of LSU. in this particular spot with the 5th pick in the draft, I believe the Giants, I'm even more confident in this pick now because John Harbaugh is our head coach. We should select Caleb Downs with the 5th overall pick, the safety out of Ohio State. And I'll tell you exactly why. Name one player that's going to be player comped to Caleb Downs currently in the NFL. I'll name it for you. It's Kyle Hamilton of the Baltimore Ravens, a guy that John Harbaugh coached, that John Harbaugh drafted and developed. Kyle Hamilton has 3 first-team All-Pros, or I believe, no, 2 first-team All-Pros and 1 second-team All-Pro and 3 Pro Bowl selections in all 3 of his seasons in the NFL. Caleb Downs is the same archetype of player as Kyle Hamilton coming out of college. They're both downhill players. They're playmakers at the safety position. And people can claim, yeah, safety shouldn't be drafted as high as number 5 overall. If you're getting a guy like Kyle Hamilton, I would take him at 5th overall. If you're getting a 2-time first-team All-Pro and an automatic Pro Bowl selection at the 5th overall pick, that's a lock to happen, I would 100% make that pick. And right now, at the time, the Patriots' biggest need was left tackle. And they addressed that. I believe right now the Giants' biggest need is the secondary. They need an impact player that's going to create turnovers, that's going to be able to stop the run better and help them stop the run better, because Kyle Hamilton can play in the box, so can Caleb Downs. Kyle Hamilton can play man-to-man coverage on a tight end or a team's best slot receiver. Caleb Downs is also capable of the same, and they both can play middle field safety. So their player comps are pretty much exactly alike. Kyle Hamilton and Caleb Downs pretty much have the same impact on the football field. John Harbaugh saw it firsthand with Kyle Hamilton. He is going to see the same in Caleb Downs, and I believe that's who is going to be the Giants' 2026 first-round selection. So you may be wondering why I'm comparing the 2025 New England Patriots and what I'm projecting the 2026 Giants to be. It's because look at the outcome. The Patriots invested so much money in free agency to build around Drake May, to establish a great defense. In Mike Vrabel's vision of what his defense should be, they've been absolutely outstanding. And then they bring in Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator to kind of nurture Drake May and develop him as a quarterback. And he's in the MVP conversation. And you look at who are the potential candidates for the Giants to hire as their OC, I believe it's going to be Todd Monken. I believe Todd Monken's going to follow John Harbaugh to the Giants, and he has some job opportunities right now as the Browns head coach or the Bucs offensive coordinator. I believe John Harbaugh was so convinced with that meeting with Joe Shane and Jackson Dart at that dinner that John Harbaugh's going to get on the phone with his former OC and say, look, I have an opportunity at something special here. We're building something special in New York. Come join me. I believe Todd Monken will do that. And you look at Todd Monken's offenses with Baltimore since he took over as the offensive coordinator. MVP Lamar Jackson 2023, and Lamar put up even better numbers than his 2023 MVP season in 2024 with 41 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Todd Monken did wonderful things with the Ravens offense. They averaged 28 points per game with Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator. I believe that is who will take over as the Giants offensive coordinator in 2026. Look at what the Patriots did. They brought in Mike Vrabel as their head coach and Josh McDaniels as their offensive coordinator. The Giants, I expect, will have John Harbaugh now and bring in Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator. So there you have your 2 coaching pieces that are going to lead the Giants to success in 2026. And I believe the Giants will also make various efforts to go all in on this roster. I think Joe Shane knows the urgency he needs to have as the general manager, and he's going to probably give out a bunch of contracts in free agency, address the interior offensive line. Like I just said earlier, we will address the secondary in the draft, and I believe we'll also take a corner or 2 in the draft, or we will sign one in free agency to solidify our secondary. We know how good our front 7 is. We know how good our D-line is. And we have our tackles in Jermaine Illuminor, who I expect us to bring back, and Andrew Thomas. Our interior offensive line is a need. Our secondary is a need. I believe Joe Shane will go about addressing those 2 this offseason. And we have the weapons. We have Malik Neighbors, we have Cam Scatterbo, we have Tyrone Tracy, we have Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson. I expect us either to let Wan'Dale walk and sign Alec Pierce, or bring back Wan'Dale. And we probably need some better depth at wide receiver 3 and 4. But if we have Malik Neighbors healthy and we have either a Wan'Dale or an Alec Pierce as our wide receiver 2, that's more than enough for Jackson Dart to be successful. So I think all the pieces are going to be set in stone for this 2026 Giants team to be a perennial playoff contender. And I'm sure there's many guys out there who are having major pushback on all this hype for the Giants since they bring in Harbaugh, especially a guy like Stephen A. Smith, who's been pushing back on all this Giants hype, saying that it's ridiculous and that it's laughable that people think the Giants can be a playoff team next season. I'll give you a logical reason as to why I believe they can. Look at the Chicago Bears. The main argument, or one of the arguments as to why people think it's unrealistic for the Giants to make the jump next season, is because of look who's in their division. They have the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won the Super Bowl a year ago. They have the Washington Commanders, who were just in the NFC Championship game. And then you have the high-powered Dallas offense. Look at what the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson had to deal with this year. I projected them to be last in the division because their division was stacked. The NFC North is even better than the NFC East was, and the Bears were still able to go from last to first. In that division in 2024, the Lions went 15-2. The Packers were the 7th seed, and the Vikings went 14-3. Yet despite all 3 NFC North teams making the playoffs in 2024 and 2025, Ben Johnson and the Bears won that division. So that gives me optimism that John Harbaugh and whoever he brings in as his coordinators can quickly turn things around. Joe Shane will go all in this offseason on addressing the interior offensive line and addressing the secondary. Once those 2 things are addressed, which I believe they will be, I see no reason as to why the Giants cannot go from last to first. And that is my prediction. For the 2026 NFL season, I believe the Giants will be one of probably 2 or 3 other teams that will go from last to first in their division. You look at which teams it was this year. It was the Jags. They went from 3rd to 1st, but they still had a 4-13 record. The Jags went from 4 wins to 13. The Patriots went from 4 wins to 14, and the Bears went from last to first with from 5 wins to 11. I think next year the Giants, I can pencil that in right now, will be one of the NFL teams that will go from last to first in their division. I am predicting that the New York Giants will win the NFC East in 2026. And that is going to be it for this video. And I will see you guys next time for when I release my divisional round predictions. They will be released before the first playoff game tomorrow on Saturday. But until then, I will see you guys next time.